Welcome to the All Things Wildfire podcast, where we delve into the latest trends and hot topics in protecting properties against wildfire. So sit back, relax, and join us as we arm you against disaster.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another All Things Wildfire podcast. Again, I will not disappoint because today we have one very special guest. Her name is Amy Bach. And for those of you that know her, you know that this woman is an advocate for the policyholder. And more specifically, I just want to share, she is currently the executive director of the United Policyholders. And so this is an insurance consumer advocate group, okay? And it was established in 1991. And Amy is an attorney. She's intelligent. She's smart. And what a great person to have on your team, or to have that you can actually ask questions to when you do have a claim, or even preparing for a potential claim, because the likeliness is we are going to be experiencing claims. And so Amy is going to give us some feedback and being able to see and look as to what it looks like when people go through a claim. And I'm sure, Amy, you've got some more stories. Let's jump right in. And, one of the things I'll share really quick, Amy, is when we talked a few minutes ago, you're like, oh, you're the LinkedIn guy. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's OP. That's me. Yeah, okay. And Amy's like, okay, I kind of heard about you, but I'm not sure. Amy, thank you for being on our podcast. I love it. I know the listeners are going to get a lot of benefit from it. So welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. And, this topic is top of mind and, all around us.
Love it. Love it. Now, so let me just point this out, okay? You are the author or co-author of this, the Disaster Recovery Handbook and Household Inventory Guide. And Amy, I purchased this a couple of weeks ago because I knew I was going to be talking to you. And I said, let me see what Amy's all about. And I was impressed. I know this is an older book, but I was impressed with the focus that you and the authors had on really helping out the homeowner, the policyholder, because the things that are inside this book are, because I'm a disaster restoration contractor, I look at this and go, wow, all of my customers should really get a hold of this when they have a claim, to have a much better understanding on how the process works, and then also what their rights are. Because I think sometimes they feel like whatever the carrier says is the truth, absolutely, and they get the result they get, and they may not be happy. But if they have some more information, they might be a little more educated and have a better understanding of what the experience is. Amy, can you tell us what prompted you to get into this? Really, I think it's a labor of love. We talked about that earlier. I feel like this is what it looks like to me, and it feels like to me. How did you get started in this arena?
OP, I was working in the New York State Consumer Protection Board way back, and the head of AIG at the time, the founder, Hank Greenberg, had come up to the Capitol with a wish list of things that he wanted the legislature to do, and they were. And my boss asked me to sit in on some of the meetings where the legislators were looking at what he was asking for, and I found that there really wasn't a counter. There wasn't a counter voice to what he, as a representative of the insurance industry, was bringing. And I thought it's not really. Of course, you don't really want lawmakers to be making one-sided decisions, only hearing half of the story. You want them to really hear both sides, and I felt like we needed some resource for policyholders to get informed and to be empowered so that their voices would also be heard. Because after all, it's the policyholders' premiums that fuel the system at its heart, and it's also so important that insurance deliver the indemnification in case of loss that it's supposed to, and that the system work, because insurance people don't like to think about it or talk about it, but it's a
Right.
big deal. It's people spend a big part of their household budget or their business budget on it. And, in the event of a catastrophe or even a small loss, you need it to work. So I just felt like it would be more healthy for the system if policyholders had a voice and had a place to go where somebody's not trying to sell them something, right? And that's sort of United Policyholders. That's a big part of what we're about, is that we're not selling anything. You can't hire us. And so we've cultivated a lot of information that's free on our website and in our book, which, by the way, we distributed hundreds of them on Maui earlier this year. And
Wow.
yeah, so the book is still, even though it was written a while ago,
Yeah.
not that, some things have changed, things have gotten more complicated. There's a lot more technology involved,
Right.
and but still, the principles are the same. You gotta, give your insurance company a chance to do the right thing, but don't be a pushover, and have your eyes open about the reality of the dynamic. It's not like what you see on TV.
So Amy, okay, so I like your last comment of like, don't be a pushover, right? Like trust them, but don't be a pushover. And the question I have is, when you were asked to go and sit in and listen in on what, in this case, AIG really wanted, like what were they asking for that triggered you into like, hold on a second, that's just one side. But what were they searching for?
They wanted what's called tort reform. They wanted to change the laws to make it harder for people to file lawsuits against them.
Okay.
And they were saying, maybe it sounds familiar. They were
Well,
saying,
Florida right now is like, that's crazy.
right.
I mean,
Like
but look, I can see what in this case right now. I don't know what was happening back then, but Florida's out of control, man. Like with
yeah. So I mean, let's put it this way: this was in the 80s, right?
Okay.
So, and coincidentally, it was also a time when they were not making as much money on their investments, which is a big part of how insurers stay profitable. Is not just, they don't live just on premiums alone. So there were some economic conditions in play that are similar to what we have now, where it's a little harder for them to make the profits that they want to make, both inflation and also there's a lot more people fighting back, and there's a lot more people in the claim process that are representing the consumer, that are there's a lot more kind of fighting and all that stuff. But anyway, so back then they said, oh, these lawsuits are killing us, and of course you can understand why an insurance company would not want to be subject to lawsuits. They would want to be able to do their business the way they want. But the reality is, for the policyholder, you really need that check and balance. You need, excuse me, you need insurance companies to know that if they don't do the right thing, and if they don't abide by the fair claims rules, and and they don't deliver the policy benefits that are owed timely and in full, that there is a remedy, right? You need that. That's a really important check and balance. Have some people abused the litigation system? Yes. But do we want to, throw the baby out with the bathwater? No. So, because I will be honest with you, I'm getting reports from people in the field in Florida that, as a result of the legislature making it basically, you'd have to be like crazy to file a lawsuit, I mean, starting in the new year, against an insurance company, because as a policyholder, because the stakes are high. If you lose, you have to pay the insurance company's fees and all that I'm hearing some reports, people feel like claim handling is deteriorating, because the insurers feel like, well, there's no penalty if we don't pay on time and in full. So
Whoa.
It's a balance, right?
That's real though. Like that, I didn't even think about that. But like when we look, like we're in California, both of us, right? And on the West Coast, we don't have these Florida issues where it's so easy to sue an insurance company. But here, and probably I'm sure everywhere, it's a hard market. Like the insurance carriers largely are the admitted ones are struggling, and the non-admitted, their premiums are astronomical, and they're saying to the homeowner, guess what? Pay it or don't. I don't care, right? It feels like, not that they're bullies, but it just feels like they're definitely in control of, what the price is. And so the homeowners are like, holy smokes, I don't have very many options. What do I do? Is that right?
Oh,
Are you tracking?
that's
Is that the
completely
same?
right. I mean, you know, it up until maybe like 3 years ago, I and my staff, we spent most of our time on, preaching basic disaster preparedness and shopping tips and how do you, don't be on how to avoid being underinsured and all that. And then, in the last few years, we've had to really shift a lot of our work to helping people find any insurance. It used to be we would be all about like, here's your shopping comparison tool sheet where you can compare company
Yeah.
A, B, and C, and see who has the better water damage coverage, the better, right? And we're just like, we can't even go there anymore. Right now, we're just like, basically, here's your fair plan options, and and stuff. And I mean, I'm a little bit exaggerating.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is not the case in most of the urban areas, but yeah, no, I mean, we're this is one of those eras where people are saying, I've never seen anything like it.
Right.
There's a lot of agents of particularly are very, very upset,
Yes.
and they're all saying this is the worst market I've seen in my career. And and there's a lot of worrying, and and so yeah, times are very, very strange.
And stress, yeah. And so the great news, because there's always got to be a ability for opportunity and for good things to happen, right? And so when I saw this coming to a couple of years ago, not like you were leading the charge for I don't know, 20 some plus 30 years, right? And so for me, this prevention piece, risk prevention, is key to really like, and let me know if you agree or not. And I'm okay if you don't agree, but being able to advise a homeowner to say, hey, Mrs. Smith, okay, here's what we got. You're going to be coming up for renewal in the next few months.
Mm-hmm.
Wildfire prevention is key.
So,
Water damage prevention, another key component you should probably look into, and having these automatic water shutoff valves. And then another one for safety is going to be the seismic gas shutoff valve. If I'm a homeowner and I do these things and I get maybe the IBHS wildfire prepared home designation, which is looked at right now, I think is a gold standard.
yeah.
If I, as a homeowner, do these things, I feel that I would have a much better chance of getting a more fairer, if that's even a term, policy, or more engaged with the carrier that says, you know what, that customer there, that potential policyholder, they've done their work, and I'm gonna bet on them, and I'm gonna go ahead and extend, some coverage. Does that sound reasonable?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's all about these days.
Yeah.
When we look at what can we do that's constructive, that's going to help people, because, I can't invent a new insurance company out of thin air or convince a lot of the insurers that have been doing business that they should, we want them to come back in the market. We
Right.
want them to, be willing to insure again in these areas where they've been dropping people right and left. But what we can do is facilitate as much risk reduction as we can and teach people, well, what are the products? You mentioned four of them, the shutoff valve, the screens for the vents to keep the embers from coming in,
Yep.
there's a hydrostatic flood, damage prevention vent if you have a below ground basement that you can put in, and all those things, right? The tell people about those things, and just keep on, identifying vendors like your company, that know how to make it less likely that a house is going to get damaged, because we've got the insurers are saying risk is higher, so what can we do? Let's try to lower it, right? So there's just you can't have enough conversations, I think, with homeowners about prevention, because you got to get it in people's head that, like, the days of your home insurance being under $1,000 a year are over.
Oh,
And if you want to avoid paying 10,000 a year, you're going to have to, do what you can. And of course, there's a lot of people who can't afford the steps, and so we got to be building grants and all that. But I mean, you're on the cutting edge, OP.
thank you. Thank you very much. And I think so. 2 points. Number one, I feel like to a homeowner who could afford it, it's pay now or pay later. Right. That's it's almost that simple. Like, hey, Mr. Smith, it might cost you, or Mr. Jones, costs you $5,000 to do this work. You can either pay now, or you're going to pay throughout years of your premium increase, and maybe it's $10,000, for example. But
Yeah.
for a consumer who can't afford a $10,000 bill right now, that's where you're right. The grants come in. And I see some of these grants. I think they're going to be there. There's 3 of them in California, Northern Cal, maybe 4, San Diego, and then there's another one somewhere. So maybe between 3 and 4. But I see them now coming to a place where they're going to be funded, and I'm excited to see how that's going to play out, because it would be great. And these are low income areas, and I'd love to see. Number one, how's it going to play out for the work to be done? Number two, how is the carrier going to respond to that? So, but I think those are the 2 options. It's like, seek out a grant to help with the bill to get your home more fortified, or pay now and then avoid having to pay all this later. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think again, we those of us who get what's happening, we know how important it is that we create a culture of preparedness mindset of people. It's like, this is your biggest asset. People have had a very kind of a passive, like, well, I've got insurance, so if anything happens, my insurance company is going to take care of it, so I'm not going to worry about it. I mean, there's always been people who are more careful about, limbing their trees and, buying sandbags and, thinking a little bit about, what do I have to do? It's going to rain. What do I have to do to, prevent water from getting in my house? There's always going to be people, of course, like that, but we have to kind of get everybody thinking that way, as far as like, okay, what can I do to my house? And who can help me do it? And that's trustworthy. There's all these things that are evolving, right? It's like, it's a bit of a gold rush in the resiliency world, right? There's a lot of guys coming in with the gel and the foam and the all that, and like, okay, but I think my organization, we've had this WRAP working group. It stands for Wildfire Risk Reduction Asset Protection, and for, I don't know, going on almost 3 years, we've been meeting every month, and we have different people speak to us. And there's a lot of innovation, OP, like, Marin's doing matching grants, which stretches the public dollars more, farther, right? Sonoma got a brick grant from the federal government, Napa, they're doing matching grants, right? So people, Marin floated a bond measure to pay for mitigation grants. It's all, we're all like,
you're working, man,
kind of excited about the work, but for the average person, they don't know what they're like. What do what and why? And one of the biggest challenges is people saying, well, I did all this and I still got dropped, by my insurance company. So we're trying to fix that too.
Right. And I think that's going to be coming. I think you and I both feel like, yes, eventually something's going to happen where the homeowner's going to be able to say, yep, here's what I did, and here's how the insurance carrier rewarded me.
That's
Great.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That is the goal of our WRAP working group, is to get there, is to get those incentives in place and the rewards in place. So important.
Yeah. Now, Amy, you have a genuine care for people. I can tell. The listeners can tell. You have a genuine care because you have all of this knowledge of years and years of working with the government, working with lawmakers, working with insurance carriers, working with homeowners, that like you could almost see very clearly what needs to happen. And I feel like you're probably also frustrated that it hasn't happened faster. And can't we all just get in a room and figure this thing out, right? But
Yeah.
that's like the magic wand thing, right? But the reality is this is hard work. What you're doing is you are carrying the load, man. I can see it, I can feel it, I understand it. How can our listeners help support you and support United Policyholders? Because I think we there's more of us that want to get behind someone like you and support someone like you and support the cause, and let's move this thing forward however we can. Maybe we don't have the means to donate, thousands and thousands of dollars, but something. How can we help with your cause?
Well, thank you. I love those are, that's music to a nonprofit executive's ears. We're a 501c3, so, donations are tax deductible, but also we have a Find Help directory where businesses make a donation, of $1,000 a year or more, but that's the base. And in return, you can have your business listed in our Find Help directory. So if you provide a service, you can be in there in the state where you're providing that service, and it's a marketing expense and investment. So that's one thing. Another thing is you can donate information to us. We're always looking to we have libraries on our website that are free. We have we have a 50 state by state help, and we have claim help stuff, and we're always looking for samples of, like, for example, what should a water intrusion report look like, if it's going to be comprehensive, or what what is and this is where it gets a little funky, like what kind of a cost range should you be looking at, for certain things. So we're always interested in technical experts like yourself helping make our library more useful to people about things that they don't really know about, like moisture meters or water shutoff valves. Like, what the heck is that? How much does it cost, and who can put it in? And we want to have that level of organic utility to our site. So if your listeners, when go on our site and look and use the search feature, you see something that missing that you have that you can donate, we love that.
Awesome. And Amy, what's the website for the listeners?
So it's www.uphelp.org, right there on my
got it.
On my
so uphelp
background
.org. Got it.
Yeah. And like I said, we're not here to sell anything. We're here to help problem solve. So you can be sure, like, if you see something that you don't agree with, in our website, you can say to us, hey, I've got better information, or what have you. Because our goal is really, to give people insurance news they can use. And so we do rely heavily on volunteers. A lot of our expertise rests in our volunteers. So, like, I've been asking the members of our RAP working group now for quite some time, do you have a relationship with a vendor in your area that can come and limb a little old lady's trees because she can't do it herself? Or do you have somebody that can do the boxing the eaves? And a lot of these groups are like, they're afraid to recommend somebody, or they had a bad experience or whatever. We're all kind of learning here. We're all on this journey together. I would say it's climate change adaptation. A lot of it is. And it's also, honestly, OP, technology, all the insure tech and all the drone imagery and the, insurance companies, unfortunately for them and for their customers, they have TMI now, right? Too much information. Like, they used to underwrite a lot more blindly. Okay, we'll insure this home, and now it's like, well, maybe let's pull this report and that report, and and let's what is Verisk, can they give us, and what can all these tech vendors tell us about this property? Because of course, most of the time it's not good news, right? It's not like, oh yeah, this is a fortified home and this is a great risk. Most of the time it's like, oh, there's some shingles missing and you can see it from the air and da 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 da.
Or the trees are overhanging on the roof. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's part of what's driving what's happening. It's not just, that we had a whole bunch of really bad wildfires, and we've had a few years of respite. It's also the technology is making all of the risk so much more vivid to insurance companies.
And because the risk is so much more vivid and so much more available, we as homeowners have to now, I'm going to use my own term, stop being so lazy and just step up to the plate and go, hey man, like, cool, there's full transparency here. They could see all my shrubs, all my trees. They could see all my vulnerabilities. I got to do something about it. And I think that's the responsibility of us as homeowners to say, let's do our part. Let's do our part to help with this problem. But as individuals, we can help ourselves by doing so.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes think in my mind, like, would you insure you? Like with your propane tank right next to the fire wood pile? No.
Would you insure you? That, I love that. I think that's going to be something that people really need to start thinking about for themselves. Like,
Yeah.
And if the answer is, I'm not sure, then it's no, right? So we have to do something. And in your book, and I'm going to push your book again, because there's one area, and I know you have to go, Amy, but there's an area that says, hey, stepping into action, like your first action steps, like things are very, very clear and they're spelled out, and like it's made to really help. So if you don't have a copy, go grab one, my friends, and educate yourself, educate your friends. Like Amy has contributed this to the Maui residents. I think what we can do for our own neighborhood is buy these for our neighbors and hand them out. And I think little by little, this education goes out, and we can, little by little impact, and maybe not in the next few months, but maybe in the next year or so, people can really start to get some traction. Amy, thank you so much. I know we're a little bit over time, but I appreciate you, and I look forward to meeting you the next time I'm in Northern California.
I appreciate you too, OP. Keep up the good work. Thanks for getting good information out there to the public.
My pleasure. Thank you, Amy.
That's all for this episode of All Things Wildfire. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to our show and follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things wildfire. And as always, thanks for listening.